until the attainment of enlightenment through the merit of my generosity and so forth. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of benefiting beings.
So, to continue our topic from the Abhidhamma perspective. The analytical meditation. When we do the analytical meditation, you can do it from the perspective of intellectual's point of view. This is one way to look at ourselves, my feelings or experiences that we go through. And sometimes when we look at ourselves from the intellectual's point of view, the descriptions that is given, or it's in the meditation instructions, such as whether how you identify with yourself. You will find that there's two different not differences, but you will find that there's a kind of differences, the way how you relate with yourself. And second layers or second approach, or the way that we identify ourselves is from the emotional. Again, generally speaking, when we look at ourselves, the intellectually looking ourselves is more to do with the conscious mind. So conscious mind trying to understand something. When we feel like there's something that is hard to rationalize, that is hard to explain, but it is very solid and grounded, that is more emotional. For instance, if we look at intellectually by using these analytical meditation techniques and try to find out who I really am, it is very hard to see anything concrete and say, oh, this is me. But at the same time, you have no doubt that you are. So almost there's some kind of strong subconscious minds doing something, and your conscious mind is trying to do something. You will feel that kind of conflicts when we do analytical meditation. And that is a little bit hard part, because since there's a conflict, we don't feel ease. You're trying to fight with something. And also, even though logically we want to identify ourselves from the intellectual, the consciously rational way, how you behave, how you look, how you act. This is our kind of ideal picture of ourselves. But then most of the time you don't see yourself that picture. You do something that is always, when you look at it from the intellectual mind, you don't want to do it. You don't want to be seen like that. And this is the, I think, challenging part of practicing Dharma in general, but especially in meditation. Because when you do like shamatha, there's not much conflicts. You just try to not think too much, and just try to calm. And there's not much conflict between this intellectual identity and the emotional identity. Both of them are okay with that. Although your intellectual mind would be a little bit more, how to say, wanted to run away, And I think many people, when you do meditation, if you don't know that finding the conflict zone is actually the critical point to develop, to penetrate more. But since it's not a easy feeling, people stop meditating in a way, because it doesn't make you feel more relaxed, but it will make you feel more like exhausted. But the more conflict actually in the meditation course, if there's no conflict, that means you're not trying against this subconscious mind, who is completely in the land of this cloudy mind. Right? So conflict means that you're trying to poke this cloudy mind and saying something is wrong, and your cloudy mind or the subconscious mind is responding and saying, no, it's okay. So this tension can be eased by penetrating it, or tension can be eased by coming back. Like when you take medicine, whether you encounter the disease, transform that into something, or eliminate it is one way to do it, or you just don't do anything because it doesn't hit each other, which means there won't be much development if you don't have that. So it's important to keep in mind that we don't meditate just for this, how to say, relaxation mind. That is fine if you have that, but that's not the ultimate purpose of our meditation. Ultimate purpose of meditation is to penetrate that illusion, that all habit, and convince that habit what is a right, what is not illusion, and to be habituated with that kind of system, to create that new system. And when you do analytical meditation, it is important to communicate. So if you just look at purely from the intellectual and disregard the emotion, it will also becomes like your disease is somewhere and your medicine is going somewhere. You know, it will become like this, go around. But when you try to communicate with this emotion with your intellectual analysis, they start kind of talking, and then this medicine is really like talking with this disease, so to speak. So when we meditate and using this analytical meditation methods, and comes to this sense that okay, so there's nothing to be found, but at the same time we should not be like okay, so intellectually I found myself. You have to go back again and okay, so then what is this feeling of I which is still there very strongly? You know, try to make them come closer and closer, so you can how to say, alternate with this emotional identity and the intellectual identity, because when they come together, the reason is that more it is far, it doesn't really matter much that you have an intellectual understanding of selflessness, but still this clinging to self will be not much change. Or you put them together, you know, this becomes more like realistic, not just concept, but something is happening there. And also this cloudy mind exposes more and more vividly, because it's almost like you have some bacteria or something, right? And then you have a magnifying glass. If you put bacteria here and put magnifying glass there and try to analyze, you won't see bacteria, but it doesn't make any difference to this one, because you are not putting this glass on the what you want it to look. So you can meditate, but then it won't become more and more clear that thing that it has to be. So when you do that, first you cannot do it together because they are too complicated, so you have to start with almost separately. That's why then slowly eventually you have to bring this analytical meditation magnifying glass on top of this emotional ego. It doesn't mean that you have to fight or cancel each other. You just have to put together and see what is the real, what is the illusion. That's the point. This whole point is illusion, right? You don't see, especially emotionally, we always see subjectively, number one. And secondly, we even don't want it to analyze it, But when you put this magnifying glass on this self, emotional identified self, things become very clear. And this is how you, let's say, identify. This is how you, maybe identify is not a good word, maybe it's to recognize the true self, or recognize or to identify the false identity of ourselves, cloudy mind. And then, because since all our other disturbing emotions are the manufacturer of this strong emotional identification of ourselves. And when this becomes clear, means you can control all the other emotions. That's the product of this. It will be very, very powerful meditation. Because you got the main switch, right? We can work with the other small things. Of course, we can do that. But this should be like our sort of main target of our meditation, to go against this strong, obscure, abstract, emotional identity of ourselves, which is what we call the co-immersion ego. There are some ego that is more built up by my intellectual mind, such as, oh, I am a monk, I am a teacher. These are my intellectually built ego. It's not that difficult to deal with it in a way. It's not that big deal. But this coherent ego, not even human beings, like birds, animals they have, it's a very difficult to identify because it's too close to you. And second thing, you don't want to even look at it. It's a little bit scary. Because you will feel like a sense of losing something by identifying it. Your cloudy mind wants to pretend something false, and when you try to look at it, it will be exposed, and that actually is a liberation. But our cloudy mind will translate that into the danger, like this red light. Oh, don't do that! Don't do that! You're destroying yourself. And even this intellectual identity that is encouraged by this emotional ego to build me up. So I will use my, let's say, you have to act like a teacher, otherwise you will lose your personality. See? So this is, even this intellectual identity is very much reflection of this emotional ego. Even though of course I can make it very rational why I am a teacher, why this and that, right? Why important what? But it is basically coming from that. keep you as strong as possible. And if I don't do that, I will lose this, I will lose that, like, oh, I'm a doctor, or so I have to be like doctor, I have to, so all these things comes within it. And even animals have that. So if you are like a peacock, you wanted to show others that you are a peacock, in a way, and they do that best. I don't know, the way they walk, or how they talk, or how they, like chimps, they wanted to show you they're existing as much as possible to intimidate other surroundings so that you can be protected. So when you look at this okay, now let's look at the cloudy mind, because cloudy mind seems like one lump. It's important when we do the analytical meditations to find out the layers of what this cloudy mind is made of, because there's not one thing, even though it looks like just one thing there. It's made out of several things. Usually in Abhidhamma, not only Abhidhamma, but mostly when we do the meditations, and identifying the different component or the substance of this cloudy mind is that we call there are 6 different cloudy or disturbed emotional categories. Now, when you put all of them together, it becomes perfect. This confident I, confident. There's certain. Some of them are a little bit from the intellectual. Some of them are, most of them are more emotional. So 3 things are more usual as we talk about the, first of all, like the 3 poison. First of all, ignorance, not seeing as it is, but imputing it according to our own belief system. So not knowing or ignorance, or not seeing the reality be the one. And top of that, attachment. That you becoming a more unrealistic, so to speak. If you need one thing and you multiply that to 5 or 10, something like it, losing the sense of what you need and what you want. So that's basically. And the third one is when you have this ignorance and you have some kind of desires, and when this desire is not accomplished, or anything that comes against this desire, you get irritated. Aversion happens. So these 3 things: ignorance, from that you don't know, and your mind becomes corrupted, it becomes irrational, which is attachment, and everything that comes between that, it becomes a cause of anger. So these three things are very common, like a foundational emotions. And on top of this, we have three more. That is, so 3% is more in general, but in top of that, the three other emotions. These, so the fourth is strong. We call it this ego, or how to say, arrogant. So not just ego, but strong arrogant. So in the sense that because of this ignorance, of course there's a strong, in the ignorance, this emotional identification is there, me, I, and attachment, and then anger. You make a big differentiate, even though it's a very emotional, but you make it like rational almost, between me and other. So me important, other not. My suffering matters, other suffering it doesn't. So all this discrimination, which makes you this strong sense of arrogance. And of course this arrogance is approved by a lot of rational minds. Okay, yeah. And also strong arrogance of my way is the right way. It could be quite irrational, but you have this very, I think like that, I believe this, I would like to do this way, So this is one component of it. And also you become a very rigid, that you don't want to change, even though you know that this is wrong rationally, but still you wanted to keep that. You don't want it to transform, you don't want it to give it up just because it's my way. So this is the fourth one. Now these are more foundational emotions. So now there are certain things that becomes the obstacle to our inner improvement in order to see the reality and transform. The fifth is unclarity or the doubt, which means that people like us, do we know the samsara? Do we know a little bit of dharma? Do we know, anger is not good? Is there a lack of knowledge? Probably not. We all know that. It's not that difficult to know what is helpful, what is not helpful. But still we keep doing it. we know that it's impermanent, but when it happens, we react as impermanent. So again, there's all this knowledge that we have becomes useless in a way. Why it is? Because again, we know it's impermanent, but we are not still not clear. Actually, we are not clear. We just have the information. Okay? We are not clear. We are not convinced. Actually, maybe convinced is better word. You have the information, but still you don't want to say it's wrong, but still you are not really convinced. So because of that, you don't see the impermanent when things happen. You still see the permanent. Yeah? And that's why we get disappointed. Because if you see the impermanent, there's no reason to get disappointed. So we still see the permanent, even though intellectual mind says us, oh, it is impermanent. So actually, if we ask, do you know it is impermanent? It's hard to say I know, because when you say no, it means you have to have 100% clarity, but still we don't have that. Maybe it's better to say I've heard impermanent, in this case. So this is, and because of that, it really becomes a big burden because you have heard it. Okay, maybe for the birds, they don't feel bad because they don't know. But we know the impermanent, but at the same time, we are not reacting. And for the people who practice Dharma, this becomes a big burden. Even knowing impermanent becomes a burden. Because now, for the maybe dogs and birds, they don't care, if they want to kill, they just kill. But people like us, we are almost like we are killing, but at the same time we know it's not right, but then you still keep doing it, and so all these clashes, emotional clashes happen. And this is because we are still not convinced. We are still very, cloudy about the impermanent. And the sixth one is we call the view, but mostly it includes it is actually a little bit related to the second one, because let's say we call it the wrong view. So wrong view in the sense that still clinging to the usually we can say that clinging, having the wrong view such as disregarding the karma and so forth. But in our case, it would be more like still not fully being able to accept such as the forces, impermanent, and such as the suffering as suffering. Such as I'm doing something, but I'm not really sure whether this is the right path or not. I'm practicing, but I'm not really sure whether this practice will lead to enlightenment or not. So many doubts. It is related to the doubt in the wrong view. But now we we might not have a intellectual wrong view, which means that if you ask me, is this impermanent or not, if there's karma exists or not, if there's a past and future life or not, we would easily say, yeah, of course it exists, I accept that, right? But if you go to the second layers of our mind, this emotionally, if you ask, we still believe that it's a permanent. We still believe emotionally that maybe there is a not next life, because I never saw. We still believe that these material things does provide happiness. I would like to invest my time and energy to that. We still believe that. And we still believe that karma, I'm not sure, because I don't know, I never saw it works. So all these are hidden wrong views we might have. Because of the second one, doubt. We might not have an intellectual wrong view, but we might have this emotional wrong views. And these 6 are the main category. If you look at all our disturbing emotions, are triggered by those things. Maybe some of comes together, maybe some are. So if you look at each thought you come into our mind, let's imagine that you have 6 boxes, okay, and then thoughts randomly comes, and then each thought actually you can put into these 6 boxes, and this is first thing that we have to do as a analytical meditation, recognizing the foundation of this cloudy mind and seeing all together how it creates this lump cloudy mind emotions and drive us to do something that we don't want to do. Now, among the 6, actually you can kind of identify after a certain time that which box you belong to. Of course, we have all of them, but then you can find that among the 6, certain you have a more frequent relationship with one of them. And then if you practice accordingly, because we have a different practice individually you can do, for those disturbing emotions. Emphasize on that practice, it will be really like taking the medicine that hits exact to that disease, and it will be quite you can feel that something is kind of happening there between your old habit and the new habit. For example, let's say we do some mistake, right? Even though mistakes might seem randomly, but if you track back and why you make these mistakes, especially again and again, you will always find there's a one pattern that is you. Maybe you will likely be found, but I make most mistake because of arrogance. I make mostly mistake because of attachment. Yeah? And you can see that very clearly. And you can almost trace back all the causes of that pattern, of that emotion, and undo each of them. And that is actually purpose of analytical meditation. You identify your emotions, trace back, see how the process happens, and then try to get rid out of each components. And when these components becomes weak, process becomes weak, that means the habit also becomes weak. So to sum up, what I was trying to say is that analytical meditation, there's a certain two part looking at our mind, and there's this emotional sort of experience we have. It's mostly pulled with presumptions, ideas, identity, and then there's a layer of this intellectual mind. We have to start with this intellectual mind when you do the analytical meditation. It is important to blend them together, so that so that your meditation becomes the real medicine, to your disease, rather than just intellectual game or something like that, thoughts. And the important point was that it's not easy, because there's a lot of clashes happens, and that is the point of meditation. So we should take it as positive and see how to penetrate that, how to pass through that, instead of coming back and saying, oh, it's too hard, or it's scary, or it is too... You can do that, but then we will never go through it. It will be the same story again and again. There will be a loop of this. You complain, you come, you go back, you complain, you come, then it will be the same. So that's why Buddhist meditation is not a running away from the problem and feeling good. Actually driving into the problem, and then figure out. That's a complicated, but that's what actually it is meant for. So even though meditation in the West become quite famous, but I'm not sure how long it's going to last. Maybe 10 years. Infatuation about meditation, because as a market we don't want that, maybe very few people, but so if you are meditating still feeling very happy, means something going wrong. I mean, maybe not wrong, it's okay, we can be happy, that's very good, but that's not what ultimate purpose of Buddhist meditation is meant. And second thing is that trying to find out which box that I belong to. For example, maybe I'm wrong, but in a way. I don't get angry easily or anything like that. But I'm very strong about my view. Like things has to be the way I want. I cannot just blend with anything. So I can see very clearly that this is my kind of box that I belong to. The good thing about this is that it doesn't necessarily mean that this box is always bad thing. Again, this is a kind of energy that you have, but the most time we use it in the wrong way. That is corrupted by ego. So ego will abuse out that energy. That's a problem. So for example, if I know how to use it, that as my strength, my clarity, but I just have to change that my clarity not according to the definition of my ego, but maybe something else. And this could be my strength. That's important. And you can do it with the attachment, anger, these other as well.
What would detachment change to?
Attachment? I think first you should, let's say, mostly our problem is that we misuse, or it's almost like we have something strong kind of pushing forces, right? But then we use these pushing forces for small things, and we kind of visit. So for, let's say, usually the problem is that we use our attachment through the sense pleasures. It's just quick, it's easy. Now you can change that into a little bit more than that. Still you can be attached to, but because sense pleasures are very temporary, very shallow. So find something more important than that. Still keep the attachment, that's fine. Find something more long-lasting and more meaningful satisfaction rather than food or these temporary things. For example, when I get a little bit angry, I do cleaning and laundry. That's very helpful. Because you never get tired actually. There's so much energy inside of you.
A lot of energy.
And then you're physically moving.
So Khenpo, you were saying that there's different practices for each one? Which would be the practices for each one?
Well, I think this is a personal thing. You have to just look at. But normally it says, for example, like in the text, meditation, it says like if you are very much into attachment, and then practicing the one meditation called the ugliness. But usually, like impermanent helps a lot to the attachment. Maybe ugliness is a little bit too much, but that was traditionally monks practice. Of course, anger and the compassion, loving kindness, all these things. But I think these days, since most of anger comes from jealousy, I think, because the life is very competitive. So not practicing the, among the four, being not able to practice the appreciation, the joy of others' happiness, that is the big problem. And it doesn't matter that someone has to hurt you. Just seeing someone is more happy than you, you get angry. Very stupid. These kind of things. And of course, the downfalls of anger, disturbing, all these things. And then if you have a problem with ignorance and meditating about 12 dependent originations, these are because you look at things from the bigger picture. Sometimes you feel like I'm very big, I'm the center of universe, but actually you're not, you're like small dust in this huge universe, and there's nothing to be a very attractive or arrogant about you, because actually you're nothing from the universe point of view. But sometimes when you have arrogance, you feel like I'm the biggest things in the universe. So this kind of ignorant illusions. But also when you don't see the reality, you make so many unnecessary mistakes that brings a lot of sufferings. And this is also a good thing about ignorance. To work with ignorance. Let's say you're very hungry, and there's a food just in front of you, everything, but you just don't know how to turn on, that thing. Just small things, and it becomes a very big suffering. So this ignorance does not have to be a huge ignorance. It could be small things, but then it blocks a lot. And for the arrogant, it's similar. You have to zoom out. And this doubt is you have to be realistic, because usually when you become too rational and too unrealistic and doubt, because what if, but all these are becoming too much rational, over rational. For example, actually impermanent is not that hidden, right? It is quite obvious. But then you make impermanent too rational, and it becomes like some sort of idea rather than the reality. So if you just look at things firsthand and try to experience that, then actually, because Buddha didn't say any magical things will happen. He just said, okay, understand the impermanent, understand the suffering. These are not something that you have to wait and find out, or use a lot of mathematics to be finding out.
And it's like linking the emotional with the intellectual as well, isn't it? For that to clarify, to bring it into experience actually, rather than having it.
So this is actually among the learning, contemplation, meditation. This will fall into because analytical meditation is in this contemplation. See.
You spoke about the emotional side, the intellectual side, and the conflict that comes when they kind of see each other.
Right.
And you said about penetrating it all makes total sense. I just wonder, like, the emotional side is tricky and kind of likes to defend itself.
For sure.
And what I've noticed is that conflict breeds an emotional reaction of frustration, and I get quite annoyed with myself, but then I get annoyed with myself for being annoyed, and I get, do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
then in that way it totally distracts me from whatever it was I was looking at, and I get lost in that.
So usually you get annoyed, and then this emotional cloudy mind will create the loop of negatives, and you feel bad because you're annoyed, all these kind of things. So then in the future you just even don't want to look at there. Okay. Now here this annoying can be from two ways. So annoying is the only a symptom. If you look at it, it's not the reason. There's behind that. Why you get annoyed, you know. So now when you do the analytical meditation, usually you don't observe, you just follow at that, right? You become this annoying. But now you can observe, and okay, so I'm getting annoyed, but why? What's wrong? You know, I will see this ego is telling you for the sake of defending that. Now bring the analytical mind, we can call it mindfulness or conscientiousness. Observe that this annoying is actually coming from the wisdom, because now wisdom mind is looking at this annoying mind and saying that this, and I'm annoyed because I'm not fulfilling my ego. Yeah. And you see the game between this ego and this irritation, and this irritation won't become a suffering. Kind of irritating, but it's kind of interesting irritating. Because before you become an irritation, and now you have this observer mind from your meditation, and just observing that, and you're just looking irritation from two different aspects, angles, and you see very clearly it's just a emotion, but my ego is translating as in, oh, suffering, oh, something bad, you know. But actually it's a good if you look at it from this angle. You know, you're just recognizing I should not be following, you know, this ego. That's the only thing you're doing.
So it's zooming out again, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, so you have to have like two angles, you know.
Seeing it rather than being it.
Yeah.
So you have a mindfulness here, irritation here, and then ego here. Usually you don't have that, and he almost become a very abstract, and what you have, you almost just become this one.
Yeah.
And then he has amazing defense mechanism.